Hey, welcome to a new episode of Man to Man 360. This episode here is actually a response episode to the Father's Day episode, the one that's called Fathers Then and Now, the one that I did with my dad. And we want to jump in on that one. The guys had listened to that podcast and had some interesting things to say to that. And we want to use this as a response show to that show. I think it was a pretty good, at least I think it was a pretty good episode. We'll see what the guys think. But we're going to, right before we get ready to jump right in, just to remind you guys, hey, if you're listening to the podcast right now, listen, if you're on Our Spirit, that's great. We're glad that you listen to us every week on Our Spirit. But to truly support this show, you actually have to subscribe to either the podcast, specifically the podcast, and download those shows every week. But you also, or you can help us by going to mantoman360.com. That's man, the number 2, man360.com. And on the video tab there, when you click on the videos and then you click on that one that says YouTube, you go there and subscribe. That helps us know that you're supporting us. So just listening on Our Spirit is nice, but it doesn't show the support, or we have no way of knowing that you support us. And that's how we can be supported on many levels, which we can explain at another time. But the main thing is right now, pause, whatever you're doing, subscribe to the show right now while you're listening. I'll wait. Go ahead. All right. Okay. Anyway, so let's go jump right in and introduce the all-stars in the house today. We have B. White, Brian White. We have Horace Everett, and we have, last but not least, Warren Meeks Jr. And of course, I'm your host, Daryl Anderson, and we're going to jump in with the response show to the Father's Day, Fathers Then and Now, that was done with my dad, and we'll be playing clips of that show throughout the show as the guys respond to that. So actually, I want to start with, let's start with Warren. Let's go ahead and start with Warren.
I thought the show,
Warren, you there?
I'm here. I thought the show was amazing. Just hearing some of the things that came from Mr. Anderson. I did get some wisdom from some old heads, man. I like hanging out with the old heads, and I was listening to him, and it was a different outlook on some things. And I know from just listening to him that some of the challenges that he decided not to take part in, though, if you really look, because in his day and age, songs like Papa was a Rolling Stone, wherever he laid his hat was his home. Those are songs and things that really could have defined him, but he chose different. And I could tell that he took his relationship with Miss Anderson. He took it serious, because I peeped how he had said that it was a time where he had to write her because they ain't had no phones. I was like, oh man, I said, most people, man, in this day and age, man, they gonna lose somebody. If they can't text them, they gonna lose them. But he said I had to write her. And I was caught up in the whole thing. I like really the whole thing, but the strongest piece to the whole thing was when he started describing his interaction with the schools. And what stood out to me the most was that he said he did not, like, he anywhere his children were, he wanted to be. Like, he wanted to have a connection with anything that had anything to do with his kids. And he was so serious about that thing that he flip-flopped his schedule and made sure it was morning or afternoon or whatever. He really put his kids first. And that's what you want to hear as a father, because that's what fathers are supposed to do. And it don't mean that Mr. Anderson painted the picture that he was the greatest father in the world. But guess what? He was a good father because his mindset was on straight. And I realized that it's mental first. You know what I mean? You got to want to be where your children are and a part of their lives. So I loved it, man. I really loved the whole thing, man. I can go on, but I ain't going to do that.
Cool. I like that. Thanks. And of course, I'd love to hear his response when he hears the show. Be White, Brian.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. I really enjoyed the fact of what your pops was saying. Like I said, I think for me the biggest thing was that surprised me, man, was how he stood out and was a part of you guys' lives, man. And also too, just that I didn't realize your pops lost his parents, man, like lost mom. So that kind of really threw me off to be like, man, this dude really did it. And then even to which kind of sucked, man. He said he realized that since he wasn't necessarily the birth child of an aunt, she treated him different. I think that's whack, but nonetheless, he noticed it, so it was real, right?
Just for clarity, so the aunt was one thing, but he had stepmoms that was treating them.
Gotcha. Okay, so the stepmoms is the whack moms. Yeah. Okay, right, I got you.
All of them, from his story, all of them seem to be kind of whack.
Yeah, yeah.